Everybody, welcome to Office Hours. My name is Sarah Krom, and I'm the managing partner of SKC & Co. CPAs. As always, our office hours are recorded and they will be archived on our website as well as sent to all registered attendees. And today we have a discussion all about ChatGPT, which I am really excited about because since tax season has ended and I started reading and listening to the news again, this is all I seem to hear about on a daily basis. It's in headlines multiple times a day, and I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing. So today we have our friend and technology expert, Dr. Stein Smith, with us to educate us and answer all of our questions. Sean is a professor at City University of New York, Lehman College, and a member of the Board of Trustees for the New Jersey Society of CPAs. And that is by far the shortest introduction that Sean has earned, and he deserves a much longer one. But there is a lot to cover today. So if you want to read more about him after office hours, there are a lot of accomplishments and different things that he's involved in. So I certainly encourage you to look him up after this presentation. So welcome, Sean.
Awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much.
So for those of you that have joined us on SKC Office Hours before, this format is a little bit different. It's a little less of a fireside chat, and we do have a PowerPoint presentation because I know very little about ChatGPT, and Sean is far and above the expert on it as far as I'm concerned in my world. But either way, we do invite you to put your questions in the chat so that we can make this interactive, and we do have some pre-submitted questions that we will work in along the way. But right now, I know Sean wants to kind of kick right off with a sort of a lightning round of leveling up everybody on AI and the different trends right now. So Sean, if I can kick it over to you, please.
Awesome, Sarah. Yes, and I will pull up my slide deck right here. And as I'm doing that, I just want to say thank you to everybody for hopping into this office hours. I know it's Friday and it's actually not raining outside today, so that's a nice change. So I do appreciate you all joining us. Okay, so as was indicated by Sarah, I'm just going to do a quick sort of lightning round level set on AI, right? Because in any conversation around anything emerging tech related, there is this, trend and there really is this occurrence where, an idea or concept, right, bursts into the mainstream and it's talked about pretty much constantly, but there is a lot of ambiguity as to actually what it is. So with that said, I'm going to try to just do a quick overview highlight reel on some of the terminology just to make sure that going forward, both here today and afterwards, that our conversations are actually focused on the right things. And so, so we have some overarching trends in AI. I'm sure all of you have heard about AI quite a bit over the last 3 to 6 months, but there are some offshoot conversations that I do think are under the radar or on the back burner right now, being overshadowed by ChatGPT, that are slowly moving onto the front burner and are going to become more high priority going forward. So with that said, and I do have hyperlinks in every single, on almost every single slide here for external sources, and Karen and Sarah have a copy of this deck, and so you are all absolutely welcome to have it, and some numbers here to try to sort of level set. Basically, AI is already impacting every customer interaction touch point, and really, we all use AI every single day, right? If any of you have a Amazon Prime account, Netflix account, Uber Eats account, which I do, I should cook more, but pretty much every business, every enterprise in every industry is to a certain level going to be impacted by AI, right? And it's always good to just sort of point out here up front that as AI is actively built out and developed and is interacting with all of us on a everyday basis, it's always important to keep in mind that as of right now, it could always change going forward, but as of right now, even the most powerful tools, be it ChatGPT, Bard out of Google, or some other chatbot or some other application, are only as powerful and as correct as the data sets they are trained on. And as those external data sets grow and then become more multifaceted, it is going to be more and more important for us as entrepreneurs, firm owners, advisors, right? Or our own entrepreneurs to be able to understand how those inputs influence the outputs, right? I'm sure all of us know, we have garbage in, garbage out, but it's really, really important to hone in on actually the implications of that, right? That if data is input with unconscious bias, errors, or more on the real head of it, any information from a business of pretty much any kind from March of 2020 through the end of 2022, all of that data, while accurate, I'm sure, isn't really accurate, right? Because obviously that sort of 2.5 year period, it was a unprecedented time for every company in every industry. And so as you are using automation tools, bots, AI to help you analyze past results and to forecast, future revenue, sales, all the rest, that those sort of 2 years of data, while important to use, and also while all of us know those inputs are going to be sort of off or altered in some way, the AI processing or the AI chatbot or the AI tool has no idea that 2020, 21, and 22 were a aberration as opposed to past history. And so, and so just right here, basically, and I just heard there was a report yesterday that I heard on, I think, Bloomberg, that the head of IBM is currently forecasting that up to 30% of all back office jobs at IBM, obviously being a AI technology company, that almost a third of the back office jobs there are going to be augmented, if not automated entirely, by the year 2030. So automation is coming for every type of job: blue collar, white collar, green collar, no collar. Automation is on the way, and it's happening very, very quickly. And I have articles here, just in case anybody wants some extra reading over the weekend. And so right here is basically for any business, and I'm a CPA, right, by background and expertise, and actually I'm here at the NJCPA offices right now for a event later on. But I always say that every business, that every interaction that most people have with the top line consumer products, right, is personalized, customized, and on demand, right? Be it Netflix, Amazon, Uber, Target, shopping, emails, ads, all of that is personalized, customized, and on demand. And if our businesses are not able to be at least partially personalized, customizable, and on demand, all of that will hurt our bottom line now, and it'll definitely hurt it going forward. And so, all of that is to try to introduce sort of the broad, topic of AI, sort of what it is, right? Because AI, it's a term and idea that has been talked about in movies, which I'm a big fan of, over the last 30, 40, 50 years. But there is really a lot of ambiguity as to sort of, as to sort of what it is and how it impacts firms. And so the idea of AI basically is this, right? It's a Terminator, it's HAL, or it's the Matrix. But it's not entirely true yet, hopefully, right? And so to have more productive conversations on AI, I always think it's important to understand what exactly it is, and then the actual types of AI, right? Because all of you, I'm sure right now, today, as we speak, have AI in your firm, in your software at some level, right? Because all that AI is, at the base level, it is a program, or it's a combination of programs that can augment or automate tasks. That's it. From the most basic to the most complicated and high-flying AI, all that it's doing is either augmenting tasks or automating pieces of certain processes to then allow us to then do other things, do higher level work, talk to customers, actually talk to them, right? And all the rest. So there are a few different flavors that I would try to talk about, but basically here, for a non-AI expert or a non-tech expert trying to understand what AI actually does, I boiled it down here to the top, maybe 5 or 6 things, right? AI of any flavor has the ability to process inputs, learn patterns and trends. I'll come back to that later. It can incorporate that past training on those past trends and helps it analyze current data sets, and then ultimately helps the entrepreneur, helps the business owner, helps all of you make better business choices. And so that's all that AI actually does, right? It can be dressed up in a whole host of ways, but ultimately it's a tool that can, over time, be taught and be educated, right, as to how to treat certain data, how to analyze certain data, and then how to draw patterns out of that data, and then hopefully apply those patterns into the future. Again, echoing back to that whole offshoot on how, while every person knows that 2020 through 2022, it was kind of a weird period for information and for actual data, AI isn't going to know that, right? So it's on us to be able to actually train the AI through either, I can benchmark it differently, I can weight it differently, but all of that is on the trainer or the entrepreneur trying to train the AI to be able to actually have those patterns and to be able to apply them correctly. And so, AI, as I was saying earlier, it's a overarching term. It's a umbrella term. I do a ton of work with blockchain and with crypto. And so all three of these ideas are overarching terms that everyone hears about all day, every day, and kind of sort of knows the background on it. But it's really important, I always think, to really sort of pop the hood and to go through and to figure out what are we actually talking about, right? To have those conversations with your staff and with your clients, with your customers, to be able to figure out, is this actually AI? Do we need AI? And then how do we integrate AI into our current relationships to improve our outputs, right? Because the whole point of this stuff is to improve outcomes, right? If you aren't getting better outcomes, then you aren't doing it right. Okay. And so off the top is this narrow or weak AI, which I almost guarantee all of you have right now in your business, because all that a narrow AI program does, or a weak AI program does, is it helps to automate, baseline tasks, billings, mailings, customer service chatbots, or other sort of non-value additive tasks, right? Obviously, billing is ultimately a value add task, right? But the actual back office doing of it in and of itself is not value add, right? And so pretty much every software program that I've seen, the accounting, production, CapEx, maintenance programs, they all have the optionality to automate some of these baseline tasks, and all of that is a form of AI. Okay. So pretty much every company has this up and running as we speak. And so now, in sort of phase 2 of AI, this is kind of sort of where the conversation around ChatGPT starts, right? So now I have this strong AI program that has the ability to be trained and educated on one data set, and to learn that, analyze the patterns, all the rest, and then has the ability to then sort of package that knowledge up and apply it to other sources of information. And so here is where ChatGPT, Bard, other AI tools are basically opening the door for us, right? Sort of mainstream users. And so now I can get answers to uh, any sort of background questions, research questions, all the rest. Okay. And so here's where ChatGPT starts. And here is where it's actually going, right? And I won't bore you all by sort of analyzing what the actual differences are between ML, data mining, uh, NLP, LLMs, and then LMMs. But but basically, here here is the type of AI that everyone thinks about when the term AI is brought up. It is a self-learning, self-teaching, and able to be interactive on its own. And there are cases of this in obviously a few sort of highly niche focused areas, right? But for the everyday entrepreneur, sort of business owner, we aren't here yet, and actually it would not be terribly helpful right now. Uh, and and it really wouldn't be helpful due to the cost and the time that it takes to build up a real cognitive AI program. But and I'm sure all of you have heard about this in the ether, that there are, now some fears that the current state of tools like ChatGPT are quickly moving towards this, and there aren't any guardrails that are currently there. So let's sort of narrow, strong, cognitive. Most all of you, I would almost guarantee, have currently right now narrow AI already working at your companies.
So Sean, here's like the
Yes.
differentiator, I think, that where you're kind of leading up to, and now we're going to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of
Yep.
ChatGPT. It's, I think of the original Ask Jeeves, or what
Yep.
everybody knows now as either Siri or Alexa, where you pose a question and they search the internet and give you the best answer that they could possibly give you.
Mm-hmm.
Alexa's a little bit more fancy. She can sing you happy birthday and play games and things like that, but essentially you're posing a question, right, to either the website or the device, and it's giving you an answer, right? But ChatGPT can actually give you a product, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just giving you an answer to a question, it's actually generating a usable result, or an output that is much more than just the answer to a question. And I think that's kind of, you could get a report, you could get an essay, you could get artwork, you could get code for Excel. And I think that's really what's, to me, is the mind-blowing part of the information and the data behind it. So, I mean, that's huge when you talk about how can that apply across a host of different businesses in the upcoming year. So let's get into it.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, excellent points there, Sarah, that sort of the main upshot here is that I can ask questions of ChatGPT, have the answer, and then also have action steps, right? Have action items, or in some of the newer iterations of it, I can actually have code to build a website. I can have a marketing plan. I can have artwork for marketing. And so, our whole conversation here today is only really going to sort of scratch the surface of the current state of ChatGPT. So let's hop right into it. So basically, what is this thing, right? All of us, I'm sure, have heard about it, have possibly used it before, played around with it. If not, don't worry. I have some examples, super easy to use. So, and so, really sort of the background here is that all that ChatGPT is it's a hyper-powered NLP tool, natural language processing. And so a anecdote here for any of you who use Gmail. And as you're typing, there are options that are put forward to help you finish your idea. That's what NLP is, right? And so the real sort of move forward in ChatGPT, it was the ability of it to actually interact with us in a way that seemed intuitive. One, and then the ability to answer questions, and then to also put some action items in there to answer it in a more human-like way, right? To actually be able to give us advice and to give us insights going forward. And I have some background here, on its partnership with Microsoft, and as some quick trivia, it was the fastest application ever to reach 100 million users. And so I'll come back to this point later, but there is a totally free option, and there is a pro option that costs $20 a month. But I'll get more into that later. But so that's the background there, and it's a tool developed by a company, OpenAI. Okay, and so right here there are some other options out there. Bard was just recently launched by Google, which had some issues, and I'll come back to this as we analyze some of the pros and cons of tools like this. But the test version of Bard, it was released to the public, and almost instantly it was giving wrong answers to certain questions, which I found quite interesting, because having the background and the whole data set of Google, I would assume that it had accurate data. So I'll come back to that later as we unpack prompts. And so, right here, there are some other options out there, both here in the U.S. and internationally. But in terms of sort of mainstream use, I would say that honestly, ChatGPT is the current sort of market leader of ease of use and of accuracy of answers. And so, just right here is a perfect, I think, image and a perfect headline for the current state of AI. Right, all of us have heard about it. There are jobs paying over 300 grand. But I was looking into one of those myself, but to be an AI whisperer. Again, coming back to those prompts, right? Because in order to have those business plans, to have the code come out of ChatGPT, we have to ask it the correct question in the right way. And so that's really the importance of these prompts. But basically, any type of business question you have, be it marketing, be it a tax question, be it other aspects of how to run a business, business names, business planning, I can ask that of ChatGPT and get answers that I can use, as opposed to just getting, informational answers. And so, obviously, anytime, there's a new tool that sort of bursts into the mainstream, like the internet, Wi-Fi, laptops, bring your own device to work. There's always going to be pushback, and there are countries and companies that have banned employees from using ChatGPT, right? And I'll add on to this in a minute, but it is interesting to note that while this one tool, ChatGPT, it is basically being built out in partnership with Microsoft, that the head of AI at Microsoft, he was just at a conference this week advocating for AI regulation. So even the people who are basically building OpenAI, building out ChatGPT, are acknowledging that there are problems with it that have to be fixed, and there are issues that, if not fixed now, are going to pop up going forward. But for all of you, right, at your companies and as you're hiring, right, you are going to have this in your mind, right? And right here, over half of all HR folks in the U.S. are drafting plans or have plans to limit ChatGPT's use at the company. And just as a quick anecdote, I was having a conversation with my grad students in the last MBA class, and so basically, I had given them a assignment, and I told them to use ChatGPT, right, to ask them this question, have the answer, right? That was it. Bring it to class, okay, and all factually correct. But then I asked them to one, explain the answer to me, and then two, tell me as the firm owner, as the entrepreneur, what to do with that information going forward. And so it's all of those nuances that are going to have to be more and more built into the hiring process, right? And
And
some
Sean,
other,
just to
yes,
interject there, I know we're going to get into the risks and some of the
yep,
ethical or unethical areas around this.
hmm
I think we're already behind the eight ball that we don't have policies and processes internally from an HR standpoint. And I know you alluded to the jobs at IBM that were going to be either automated or augmented by 2030. But an interesting article that I read last week in prep for this talked about how job applicants are now using ChatGPT to not only generate their resume, but any cover letters that may be required as well for hiring
hmm
purposes. We could do a whole separate office hour on the issues with hiring, and I think we may have done that in the past, but that is huge for a business owner who is in the market to hire and looking for a candidate, and they have no way of knowing really that this document in front of them or on their screen is completely fabricated, not by the individual who they're sitting across the interview desk from. And I think that's something that I don't know how we police that. I certainly don't have the answers, but it's just one of the little nuances as a business owner that I think we need to be aware of, that's out there and that's currently happening already.
absolutely. No, and I mean on the hiring side, that's absolutely a issue. And then on the uh, academic side, that's also a issue, right? There are cases where they're having entire theses written by ChatGPT. And so, one uh, workaround, I was just talking to a uh, colleague of mine who runs a uh, digital marketing agency. And so going forward, his interviews will obviously be the conversation, go over the resume, cover letter, all the rest. But then as a part of the interview, any any candidate will have to demonstrate hands-on right there, live during the interview, some of the attributes and tasks that are outlined on that CV. So isn't a ideal solution, but I would say that there is going to have to be more sort of manual uh, checks during that interview process, candidate hiring process, all the rest. Okay, and so basically just here some of the questions that I've gathered over the last basically half year, right, because all of this conversation around uh, ChatGPT, it only was launched back in December, so it's only been out there now for 5 months. But so right here, some of the questions and the issues that I've seen raised quite a bit, on the firm itself. What is the business plan to actually use this tool, right? It's a powerful tool, but I have to have a actionable plan to use it. What tasks or processes am I planning to automate? And then how do I tell employees who are currently doing all of those tasks that one, I'm going to automate tasks, and two, how that's going to impact them, right, going forward. And the biggest obstacle that I've seen to any technology being implemented, I'm sure all of you have too, is the first reaction to anybody hearing that half their job is automated. That's obviously going to produce some anxiety, pushback, and a unwillingness to actively go ahead and to automate half of their jobs. And so having those conversations in a proactive manner, I found to be quite helpful. And then also right here, do all of you understand, right? As the entrepreneur, as the owner of the company, do you understand fully the impact of integrating tools like a ChatGPT? And then right here, here is where a whole bunch of the conversation is currently right now. Do we have policies on who can use ChatGPT, how they can use it, and also what types of information are able to be shared with it, right? Right, because every company has a lot of confidential data on their customers, suppliers, employees, and also how they are planning out the next 2, 3, 5 years, right? To grow, take market share, all the rest. So are there any, limits or policies as to who can use it, how often they can use it, and then what type of data or questions are able to be asked of it? And it's also worth highlighting that the ownership of any output from a answer derived from ChatGPT isn't quite crystal clear yet, meaning that I can ask it to write me code or to write the Excel code or to develop a website for me as a business owner. But then who owns that code or that website developed off of that code? Right now, there aren't any clear-cut answers on that. So all of that is also a aspect of it to watch. And then also, how do we actually confirm answers, right, out of these programs, right? Because no program, no AI is always going to be perfect. And so is there a process in place to verify or confirm answers derived from our prompts? And then also, do our partner companies, vendors, supply chain partners know that I'm doing this? Probably not. And so it's always good on both ends, right? Inside the company, loop the employees in, educate them, train them, and also reassure them on the impacts of these tools. And then also externally for suppliers, vendors, partner companies, educate them, inform them, and also reassure them.
Sean, you talked before we actually started the program, we were chatting about the meeting at the White House earlier this week with, some of the heads of the different technology and AI companies. And you even talked about the individual from Microsoft who was advocating for regulatory, regulations over this. Right now, obviously, we don't have any, right? So who would that be? Possibly. And do you foresee in the future, because as you said, this happened in December and it's skyrocketed as far as users go. As I said, we're already behind in creating policies and strategy behind it from an employment and a firm and a company process policy standpoint. Do you foresee that there's going to be a new creation of a regulatory body to try to implement some of these? Because not to get political, but if we put that in the hands of Congress, it's not going to happen fast enough for our needs.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, Sarah. And I won't get political either, but sort of my general approach to these things is that the less congressional oversight and interference we have, then the happier I am. But in this context, I do think that there are going to have to be guidelines put into place, but I do fear that it's going to end up being more of a top-down, sort of a heavy-handed type of approach on AI, unless the individual companies out there, both the companies like the Googles and the Microsofts and the Amazons that are building out and are powering these tools, can coordinate and collaborate on some private sector guidelines. But I absolutely do think there's going to be movement on this, and I'm only so optimistic on that because I don't know if all of you have heard, we have this big vote coming up next year. I think it's for president. So I would almost guarantee that they are going to want rules around AI artwork, AI marketing and outreach. They are going to want guidelines in place prior to that process sort of kicking into high gear. But I would say that probably we aren't going to see anything before the end of 2023, and it'll probably take the form of a private sector sort of best practices or a code of conduct for AI development written by the private sector, and then sort of given the okay by people, probably not in the Congress, either at the White House directly or at some committee or some council appointed by the White House to try to move quickly on these issues.
You use the term code of conduct, which is probably the accurate term to use because you have two factors, right? We have the regulations
Yep.
and the how to, and how do we protect ourselves from ourselves. And then we have the ethical side of it, essentially,
yeah.
right? Of what is okay to use this for, what is okay to claim as ours from this.
Yeah.
And I think that clearly, I think everyone would agree, is probably the muddiest side of it. So I like the term code of conduct in relation to this.
Yeah, no, and I mean the human part of this conversation is often overlooked, right? That the AI itself is neither good or bad or ethical or unethical. It's just up to us to try to figure out how we're going to use it, and then how much data is going to be put into it, and then how, as we put all of this data into it, how are privacy considerations factored in. So, and so in terms of actually trying to interact, right, the because terms like AI or a chatbot can seem sort of ambiguous, right? Some ethereal thing in the cloud, right? But it's actually very, very straightforward to interact with it and to get answers and to get output from it. And that whole thing is called prompts. So so if I hop back here for a quick minute, this AI whisperer job right here, this AI whisperer job, rather, it was all about how to correctly prompt ChatGPT to answer questions. And so right here is how we interact with it. And as always, and as with people, right, the more focused and direct and nuanced your question is, the more actionable and the more insightful the answers are going to be, right? But it's always important to note here that, again, as of right now, there is no fact checking aspect of any answers derived out of ChatGPT. And there are numerous cases where depending on the question asked or the individual being asked about, right, there are answers that are more or less accurate. But the whole concept on prompts is how you interact with it. And so right here, I do have some examples here that I'm going to share that I had pre-recorded actually earlier, I guess, in the week and towards the end of last week. So just bear with me 1 second. It should all work because I actually downloaded them all onto my computer.
So Sean, as you make that
Sure.
transition, I just wanted to ask from a factual standpoint, so
Sure.
mostly I understand, but in case anyone in the audience doesn't, what is the data source or what is the mechanism now to teach ChatGPT? Is it pooling from the internet? Is it fed something from OpenAI? Is it our interaction with it that continues to educate it? What right now is educating it?
Sure. And so currently right now, it is a combination of the in-house information being fed to it out of Open AI. It is all of us asking it questions all day, every day, and also it is going to be fed information directly from Bing, Microsoft's
So that's
search
a
portal.
heck of a lot of opportunity for individual bias to come through.
Yes.
And some sort of manipulation of what
yeah.
actually goes in to then come out.
Yes, yeah. And there are all kinds of examples that I won't show you all here, but there are plenty of them online where if you ask a question in a certain way or about a individual, you will have some very interesting answers.
All right. So reluctantly, let's look at this thing since I've avoided it for 5 months. I can't any longer. I can't stick my head in the sand any longer.
Nope. I'm dragging you. here, Sarah. Okay, so right here is the open
So we don't
AI
see it yet.
portal.
We still see
Uh,
your PowerPoint.
let's see.
You may need to unshare
Oh,
and
you know
reshare.
what? Yeah, I have to share the screen. Sorry about that. Let me. Okay, there we go. Apologies for that. Okay, so can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so right here, it's the open AI portal, and it's a very basic interface for now. I'm on the free version. I have signed up for the premium version, but I haven't got approved yet. So I'm in the free OpenAI portal. It's very easy to go to openai.com, sign up, and you'll have access. And so a aspect of it that I like is that as you are doing sort of research or asking questions of or out of this program, it actually automatically sort of lumps them into conversations. So right here, I have some examples, and I am going to start off right here with trying to get some better uh, SEO terminology for my HVAC business. So right here, and I can't type that well apparently, so so just hold on for a quick second. But right here, I'm asking the question of ChatGPT, asking about boosting SEO items, and I'm asking it for some more keywords to help amplify my uh, rankings.
So definitely marketing related here.
Yep, marketing, and here it's answering right here, and there it goes. And I believe I end up with about 20 or so terms that I can use right now to basically amplify my SEO reach. Keywords right now in real time, and it also adds some extra context about how to do it right here. So I can put it in the website, in the meta commentary, um, in blog posts, and in other online content. I can drop these words in. So one, it's answering the actual question, and then two, it's also giving me action steps as to how to integrate the first sort of factual answer into my current business plans. Pretty cool stuff. And I have a couple more to show, just to highlight some of the breadth of this. And I also asked ChatGPT what are some of the business or the use cases of it, and just give it a second to load up here. I can only have one of these media player things open at one time, so just give it a quick second.
Sean, ChatGPT types better than you do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been texting too much over the last decade, so it's hurt my actual typing. Okay, and so here I'm asking it to try to write a business use case, basically asking it how it can help me as an entrepreneur, right? And I'm asking for a short paragraph on the best business use cases.
I see
As
you've
if
specified short paragraphs so you didn't get,
like a book.
a thesis on it.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
about the prompts.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's going to give me an answer right here, typing it.
So what's so interesting to me is this is obviously real time when you recorded this and did this interaction with the program. It's fast. I mean,
it's incredibly
crazy fast.
It is incredibly fast. And right here, it highlights to me some of the use cases, and then also the upside of having some automation in the business, right? So I can use the tool to maximize time, and I can streamline operations by having ChatGPT, analyze market trends, consumer behavior, best practices, and then also talking about the firm benefits of doing so. I can save time, increase productivity, and ultimately down here at the bottom, which I know any CPA is always aiming to do, help their clients make better business choices, right? So it's highlighting the operational options, and then also the upsides of doing so. Pretty cool stuff.
I get a sense, Sean, that, and again, I'm going to stick to like the marketing side of things just for a second, based on your last prompt, where, we talked about earlier, nobody really knows who owns the content, right? That hasn't been determined. There's no legal anything precedent behind it. And I feel, as with most things, that this is going to be something that is probably going to be heavily monetized at some point, right? So when you look to, get help with your social media content, or what can my, newsletter look like this week for XYZ type company, the entrepreneurial accounting firm, if we're going to use SKC as the example, then it just becomes, okay, at some point, are we going to have to pay for that as a service? Or are we going to have to license that from ChatGPT? Or, we can't possibly think that they're not going to continue to constrict this or look for ways to monetize it.
Yeah. And what I would say there, Sarah, is that is the one risk and two kind of hope that I have in terms of actively trying to regulate this space, right? Right. That it's important to again highlight that Microsoft is not putting $10 billion into open AI for your fun, right? They are investing that money to ultimately earn it back and to earn a profit on that. So yeah, I mean, what I would say is that going forward, as in anything else, right? The internet is a great place, but it's also a awful place, and there are all kinds of add-on services, products that you pay for on the internet, and the more they are used, more they are implemented, then the more that I have to pay. And so that, I think, is ultimately where this AI stuff will end up, in the form or in the realm of a chatbot, right? There'll be industry chatbots, research chatbots, marketing chatbots, and all of that over time is also going to influence how those ownership rights, how the IP rights are then, conveyed, controlled, and ultimately documented.
Is there also, I mean, it's obvious as a rhetorical question, I guess, but two things come to mind. One is the concern that you're putting, just by asking the questions, you're putting information about your business out there, right? Just you're asking about it, right? I mean, I was ordering sunglasses the other day from Warby Parker. Now suddenly, every time I pop on, I got sunglass ads, right?
Yep. Yeah.
That, and the other one that comes to mind is for those who are maybe a little older, this puts cliff notes to the side pretty quickly. I mean, gosh, you're writing your college essays, go out and, go have some fun and type in a few things here in your college. It's amazing how colleges are going to deal with this.
Yes, and as somebody who's in the higher ed space, I'm actually here today at the NJCPA Educators Update, where I'll be talking on that topic actually in about an hour. So, no, but the whole question on how do we keep right. Well, the whole issue around fake news, bad news, and also deep fakes, they were there anyway, and then having tools as powerful as the ChatGPT are only gonna turbocharge those items and the risks of them. And so, yeah, I mean, it is going to be that ongoing conversation, highlighted by having the White House move actually very, very fast for the White House and for government at large to understand the issues here and to have that roundtable, to at the very least have those conversations on the ethics and the ownership of this data. So yeah, no, it is 100% going to be a ongoing issue that's only going to become more, I think, pointed over the next 18 or so months.
No, and not to get political, but the word ethics has really been diminished recently. So it's right. It's frightening.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at your next prompt, Sean.
Sure. And so on that point, there are some risks here too. And personally, I just felt it was interesting to ask ChatGPT of the risks of
Itself.
actually using it. Yeah. So being a little self-aware here. So, which is encouraging. And yeah, so it's answering here on some of those core points that had been covered previously, right? Accuracy, transparency, privacy, and also this chatbot is not all knowing, right? It is not able to actually deliver answers to every single question. And so yeah, so right here, and also right down here, point 4, there is that sort of lack of nuance or being able to have the answer and apply it to a certain customer or client who, based on something that happened 20 years ago, won't do option A, but is always going to do option A, except 1, 2, 3. So it's all of those basically aspects of having answers and then applying them to the individual facts and circumstances.
So Sean, between this one and the next one, I just wanted to pose the question, what does it mean by ChatGPT hallucinating?
So that's a interesting term, and depending on who you ask, you will have some different answers. But basically, what that points out is that depending on how the question is asked, who is asking it, when it's being asked, and where in the world the actual computer is asking that question, there are going to be different outputs to the exact same question coming out of this spot. Or in other words, right, the human oversight side of this as to what pieces of information are able to be accessed by ChatGPT to answer our questions are going to vary. So basically, right, it's a kind of interesting term, but from my anecdotal experience here, that commonly is talking to the fact that there are going to be different answers coming out of ChatGPT depending on who is asking it, when they're asking it, and where they're asking it from.
So by way of example, I'll use your next prompt as my illustration of this, which I think is about business names for ChatGPT. Yep. So you sitting in, the United States, I'll state of the country, not too specific geographically speaking, will get a different answer to this question about business names than someone who is, say, at midnight over in Germany asking the exact same question into ChatGPT.
Yes.
Right. That's essentially what we're
yep.
what captures it.
Yes, and obviously the term is a interesting term, but it does echo back to something that already happens. I'm sorry, I'll pull this back up. I was just at a conference down in Mexico City, I guess 2.5 weeks ago. And while up here in the States, we have Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, down there, they have Coke Light, Pepsi Light. And then also, there are just depending on the languages and the industry of a certain area, sort of terms, numbers, and ideas that either are commonplace or not. So in certain Asian cultures, there are lucky numbers that here are unlucky, and there are certain numbers used in other countries that then aren't used in some other markets. And there's the infamous case of the Chevy Nova, which here in the US was a mainstream car. Latin America, South America, sold incredibly poorly. Why? Chevy no va, no go. So items like that, right? It is not a quote unquote new idea, but it's just adding that extra layer of basically illustrating that the answers derived out of this program are in a big in a big part actually based on our questions.
This is so fascinating to me, and I thank you so much for sharing this, especially on a Friday, because now we can play with it on the weekend if you are so brave and haven't played with it before. Because I think, there's a certain, at least from my perspective, there's a certain novelty to it, and what can it do for me, and what will I get if I ask it this way versus what will I get if I ask it that way. Both on the creative side of things and on, for me personally, the technical accounting side or tax side of things, what's the accuracy of the output depending on what I put in. So I thank you so much for joining us today. I thank our audience members for joining us today. It was quite an education for me, and I'm sure that it was for you too, and I certainly hope that it was. We will be emailing around the link to the presentation that is being recorded, and we're also, I believe, going to include the slides and the PowerPoint as well. So please enjoy that, share it with your friends, rewatch it if you joined late. And I thank you for joining us. If you do have any ideas for future SKC office hour topics, we definitely want to make them worth your while. So please email them to Karen Donaway or Brittany, and we will add those to our upcoming list. Sean, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. We could have probably made it 2 hours, but that's kind of enough mind-blowing stuff for me at 9 o'clock in the morning in 1 hour. I do appreciate that. Thank you so very much. And again, thank you everybody for joining us today. Have a great weekend.